volunteers. We're so grateful that either you've been able to be with Lift and be with these kids for the last couple of years, or you're brand new, or anywhere in between. But this is a video on what to expect 4th grade year, because it looks a little bit different, especially if you've been with these kids during 2nd or 3rd grade. So during 4th grade year, these kids may be more eager to take on harder challenges, to read harder books, and that was something that was really neat to see, is seeing them improve and seeing them wanting to take on more in some cases. They also might want to take on more ownership and more responsibility, and one good way to respond to that is by giving them more positive choices, so that they feel that they have a sense of ownership in what they're choosing to do. So one example of that, if you're sitting and reading with a child and they're saying, no, I don't want to read, or I'm not going to do this today, you can always stop and give them 2 choices. So maybe that would be, okay, we're going to focus on reading right now, but if you make it to the end of this chapter, we can spend the last 2 or 3 minutes just talking together. Or you could choose to go with me and we can try to see if we can find a book that you'd like to read better.
I don't want to read.
Well, I know that maybe that's not exactly what you want to do in this moment, but we get to focus on reading right now, which is really awesome, and I'm really glad to be here with you. Do you want to either finish a couple more pages, so finish the chapter that we're on, or do you feel that you would want to go find a new book to finish?
Finish the chapter.
Finish the chapter? All right, let's do that. So you're giving them 2 positive choices where they're still having to continue their reading, but they also have some sort of ownership in what you choose to do. They might continue to resist, but oftentimes kids can respond well when they're given a choice in a situation where they're feeling a little bit resistant. So, in 4th grade, kids also might be facing additional challenges at home or at school, or maybe able to emotionally process those in a little bit of a different way. So one thing that I saw over this last year where kids were more often talking about drama that was happening between each other, things that were happening at school, and so they're beginning to move into a stage where they're going to have a little bit more conflict and a little bit more emotional angst. And so that's something that you can ask those kids about, is how's it going with your friends at school? What's happening with this? And you might see some of those things happening that happen at school being brought to Lift. And so it's important to be mindful of that and to know that sometimes when people are having a bad day, when one of those kids is maybe acting out, sometimes it's a conflict between them and one of those people in their class at Lift, or maybe it's something that's happening at school outside of that. And so just to be aware of that and to ask insightful questions to them. Another thing that 4th graders may be a little bit different in than prior years is that 4th graders may talk back more and they may resist more. They may not be as willing to give or receive affection as they were at younger ages. That can feel discouraging at times, or it might feel like they're pushing you away, but it's especially important at this time to lean in more, to be more curious about them, to be more affirming of them, because they might be less affirmed in who they are by their teachers or by their parents, or just their internal self-talk may be more negative. And so they need people positively reinforcing them, to encourage them and to point out their strengths, to really affirm them when they are acting out of kindness or Lift's core values of trustworthiness and care and generosity, different things like that. And so when you're able to see that, to really affirm that in them. 4th graders might be more disengaged in their reading or in the enrichment time and worship. So that's something to be really mindful of, is not to criticize them or to punish them with negative talk or action when they are disengaged, but trying to think of creative ways to engage them better and help them to see the value in what they're doing. They may want more explanations as to why we do something, and so really respecting them enough to give them a thoughtful answer and to give them an understanding of, this is why we do what we do at Lift, or this is why it's important to engage at this time, and you're an example for the students around you as well. So different ways to use our language, or to help them to see the meaning in what we're doing, or just encouraging them like, hey, now's not the time for that, we're going to be present here together. and you can always give positive choices in those situations as well. With the fourth graders, when you're experiencing potentially some more challenges or feeling discouraged, just to remember to stick with them and know that this is a year that's especially important to have those consistent people in their life and people to care about them. We were able to see some of our fourth graders from last year who experienced some more of a tumultuous year come back and be volunteers as fifth graders and really exhibit a lot of maturity and a desire to serve and a desire to be working and serving with Lift. And that's something that we hope we'll be able to see with our fourth graders in following years, that they can come back and this continue to be a safe place for them. So really make a choice to stay with these children, to encourage them, even if that's not something that they're giving back to you. Don't take it personally, because this is just a transition year in a lot of ways. And know that there's a lot of external factors in those children's lives. It's not always what they're just exhibiting in the moment. They might not be angry at you, they might be angry about something that happened 5 hours ago or 2 weeks ago that they're just processing at that time. So don't take it personally. Stick with these kids, because you don't know exactly what fruit that will bear in the future, but you can know that it's having a positive impact in their life right now. And know that you're investing in who these kids will be both now, who they'll be later, and how they will impact the people around them.